This is the TeamTracer Action Capture tutorial. The Action Capture screen is the heart of the TeamTracer system for tracking your ins and outs and assignments. The way that we start the TeamTracer Action Caption screen is by going up to the TeamTracer item in the menu. When we do this, we get a event wizard which allows us to do one of two things. If we've had a previous event that we have continued to leave open that we had to leave for some reason, we can open that event back up if that still exists, and the open existing event will be available. And we'll also be told that there's an existing event, or more than one if there is more than one. The other thing that we can do is to create a new event, and that's what we're going to do here. So we'll go ahead and select that we want to create a new event, and we're going to go ahead and say next. The next event creation screen is actually really very limited in terms of what you need to enter in. In fact, it's so limited that beyond the date and time, which has already been filled in for you and doesn't need to be changed unless you need to change it, the only thing that you need to do is to change the name or make certain that the name of the tutorial has been entered in. And the name of the event has been entered in. So in this case, we're going to be calling the event tutorial. Now, we could also add a description for the tutorial to say, this is the tutorial, and anything else that you wanted to say about the event. Assignment files. If you've previously used the TeamTracer Action Capture screen and have set up a number of assignments, or an assignment tree as we call them, then those assignments can be saved for future use. This can be a huge time saver if you use the same assignment structure over and over again for your events. In this case, we actually have just one that's been predefined, which is the NFPA standards. If you're in the fire service, that's something that will be familiar to you. And we can select that as a assignment file that will predefine the area that we want. The action reminder, if you've looked at the action capture setup screen or the configuration screen for TeamTracer in our other tutorial, you'll know that the TeamTracer system has the ability to remind you on a regular basis of a particular item, and you can turn that feature on and off for this particular event. In this instance, we're going to go ahead and leave that off. And that's it. The only things that it's going to do now is to tell us exactly what it is that we are going to be creating, the fact that Action Reminders is turned off, that it will be using an assignment file from a particular location. If any of the settings aren't correct, we can always go ahead and go back and make changes to them, or if we're ready to start the Action Capture screen, we can go ahead and say Finish. Move this into our area. Here's the TeamTracer Action Capture screen. And as you'll notice right at the moment, it's completely empty because it's a brand new event and we have not created any entries yet, we haven't swiped any cards and so forth. Let's go over some of the basics, including looking at the toolbar, the assignments, and so forth. The assignments have been predefined because we selected from a standardized tree, and by tree we mean that the system is capable of having multiple different levels of assignments. And so in our instance, what we have here is actually 3 levels. We have our top level, which is called tutorial, which has been picked up specifically from our event name. Then we have multiple sides, so we have a side A, a side B, a side C, and if we scroll down slightly, we can see that there is a side D. Those are been defined as top levels below the event. Now, as sub-items under each one of those, we have Division 1, Division 2, Division Sub, and Roof. So these are secondary levels. The system is completely flexible so that you can have as many levels deep as you wish and as many primary levels as you wish. So whatever structure makes sense for your particular event, please go ahead and make certain that you do it exactly as makes sense for you. One of the things that you'll also note is that these things are generally flexible. And so what we can do is with any item that happens to show up in this menu, if you right-click on it, you'll notice that you get a menu that selects and allows you to see a number of different options, including showing all the people who are currently assigned to that location, which when you have a lot of people could be very interesting and very important. You're also able to add, which would allow you to add another item, which would be add another sub-item off of the one that you've selected. You can delete this item, and the only reason that you can do that is because nothing's been assigned to it yet. If something has been assigned to it, then a padlock will show up next to the name of the item, and delete will no longer be available because the information is in use and can't be removed or would lose the tracking of the person and the location that they were assigned to. You can edit the information to make a change to the name, or there's also the ability for you to make a description, or if you simply want to exit out of this particular menu, you can always hit cancel. Let's look at it very briefly so you can see how simple it is to actually make a change. You'll notice that this item has come up. We were in roof, so we've got roof here, and we have a description. We could change this to something such as rooftop and say that this is the top level of the building. And we can go ahead and say OK, and now you'll notice that the information here has changed to rooftop. You'll also notice that there is a light gray outline here, and that is to indicate that this is the current selection. And if you were to swipe a card in right now, that person would be signed in against the rooftop under side A underneath tutorial. So let's go ahead and do that now to show that that is the case. Down in our action entry screen, if you have looked at our previous tutorial about configuration, you know that the system is very flexible in terms of its input. It can use a couple of very specifically defined units, such as the RFIDs PC procs or the Magtech USB magnetic stripe reader, but it also can use any keyboard emulation based system that the system sees or that your computer sees as a keyboard device, including your keyboard. So if we were to swipe a card that in our sample database had an entry number of 259, then we can go ahead and hit enter. And now several things have happened on the screen. You'll notice first of all that the badge containing 259 was found. It shows up in green to indicate the fact that the badge was found. We also see now that we have an entry here which says exactly when that action occurred, the nature of the action, in this case it was an in, the assignment, which we know was going to be side A/rooftop because that was the one that we were selecting, and we've also got the name of the user, and we've also got their department, which again, if you looked at the configuration tutorial, you'll note those were the items that were selected in that tutorial. The other thing that's come up just slightly behind our window, we have a limited area for the screen capture, but what we can see very briefly is the fact that when you're looking at this on a full screen, on a maximized screen, for example, that the badge that is associated with that particular individual is also available. Now in our screen area it's a little bit limited, so we don't have a lot of room to keep that particular information up, but if we move the badge over here, you'll see that this is the badge, and it gives you the visual confirmation that the person who you've swiped in is actually the person who's holding the card. So further human level of confirmation that that person is the right person. We're going to turn that screen off for a moment so we can get back to our regular screen. Finally, I'd like you to notice that under the assignments, the padlock that I just mentioned a few moments ago is now available, is now listed here for side A and for rooftop because that is down the chain. And you'll notice if I right click now on rooftop, while all of the other items are available, delete is not available because we need to have that information for being able to keep track of things down the road. Swiping people in and out is just that simple. If you have a swipe reader, then what was going to happen is the information is going to be entered in as soon as you swiped, and the search is going to happen instantly. So if you wanted to swipe this person back out now, we could swipe them in, and we can do it just as easily as entering the number again. So under normal circumstances, what you're going to find is that the in and out system is purely a toggle. You swipe the person once, and that swipes them in. You swipe them again, and that swipes them out. Let's talk now about some of the features of the buttons across the top. Going from left to right here, one of the things that we can do if in a current event is that we can create a new event if we wish. So if we wanted to start something spontaneously, we can go ahead and do that. The one next to that allows you to close and archive this event. And so that does exactly what it says, that the event would be closed, the data would be archived, and then that event is no longer accessible as an event. Its data has been put to the side, and that particular event is done and complete. The system will give you a double warning before you do this, because if you don't want to close the event, you want to make absolutely certain that you don't lose the ability to continue the event if you wish to. This next group of buttons has to do with the assignment tree, and a couple of them have to do really with how the assignment tree is displayed. One of these items right here, this button right here, allows you to expand all of the items out. In this case, they actually already are all expanded out. Or you can collapse all of them down to just their top level items in case you wanted to see it just at a top level view. The other thing that you can do, we were talking about the setup for this, for the event Action Capture Wizard, is that you can save a tree. So if you've created a tree that you wish to keep, you can go ahead and say that you'd like to save it, and you can see that we get a save assignment tree. And ATF is an assignment tree file. That is the extension for it, and you'll notice that there's the NFPA tree that we used when we were setting up this event the first time. You can obviously save that and keep it for later use. Again, a very time-saving feature if you have a standardized assignment that you like to use. The next 4 buttons are very, very important buttons, and they have to do with allowing you to filter the way that the information is being displayed. The first one is the In button, and the In button is generally pretty self-explanatory in that it will go ahead and when you push that button, only show you those people who are actually currently on scene or on the event or are still marked as in for that event. Now you'll notice that we already swiped in and swiped out the one person that we were testing with, and so right at the moment there are no entries in here. However, if we enter 260 and we go ahead and hit enter, you'll notice that a person has shown up on the inside. There's one extremely important feature that this system has that is only available when you're on the inside, and that is the reassign button that you'll see down here. If for some reason the person has been swiped into the incorrect place as far as their designation in the event system or the assignment, or if you want to be able to change the location that they are in, say they've radioed in to say that they've moved from side A to side C, and you want to note that in the system without having to swipe them out and swipe them back in again, reassign allows you to do that. So if they have moved to side C, division 2, we can highlight that area, and then we can go ahead and say reassign, and what you'll notice now is we've got the padlock over here, the reassignment has been acknowledged, and up here the in has been changed to reassigned. Doesn't mean they're still not in, they are, but what's happened is that their location has been changed in the system, and so now it recognizes that they're inside C Division 2. You'll also notice that if we expand this column out a little bit, that you'll notice that there is a total number and there's also a current number. And that has to do with the fact that when a person moves within an event or within a scene, they may very well have been on that scene for longer than the time that they've been at the current location. And so the system keeps track of their total elapsed time since they were marked in at the system first, as well as their total amount of time that's passed at the location that they are currently assigned to. If you're interested in turning that off and just seeing a list of chronological events, you can go ahead and turn in off, and now you'll see that you have the in, the out, the in, and also the reassignment. If you wanted to see those people who have been swiped in and then subsequently swiped out, you can go ahead and click on the out button. And the out button, this will show you only people who have been marked as out so that you can see exactly who it is that's left. We haven't talked about special actions yet, but special actions have to do with wanting to acknowledge a particular happening during the event that you don't want to get marked as an in or an out. So let's say, for instance, that we create an item under tutorial, and we're going to create a new one, and it's going to say checked the oxygen. And we're going to say OK to that. Okay, so now we have an assignment up here. Now I may want to swipe in the user for 259, the ID 259, to say that I've done that, made that effort. That doesn't mean that I've just come into the scene, and it doesn't mean that I've left the scene. It just means that I want to be acknowledged and marked that I did actually perform that particular operation. The way that I acknowledge that that's what I want to do is I make certain I have the correct assignment checked. I select special action, which you'll see sticks down when I do that, and then I would swipe my card or present my prox card or enter my ID number and hit enter. And what you'll see now is that instead of an in or an out, I now have a special action marked with the yellow, and that special action has come unpressed because we only want it to apply to that one action. So that allows us to see a special action. And again, the SP button up on the toolbar here allows us to specifically filter to see just special actions. So we'll go ahead and turn that back off now, and you'll see that we just have our nice chronological list of events of things that have happened so far. There's one other really useful filter that the system comes with. It's called CS, and CS stands for current status. So if I go ahead and I click on this, what I get is the final status, or the most current status, for each of the individual ID numbers that I have swiped in. So it lets me know basically what the last status was, or the current status, for every individual who's has shown up at any time during this event. And so I can see that Peter Morrow, his last item was an out, and I can see that William Jeffries was last reassigned to Side C Division 2. And so this allows me to, it still is somewhat chronological, but you're seeing only the information that is just one swipe per person, rather than it being however many activities might have been performed for that particular individual, either ins or outs. So we'll go ahead, we'll turn current status back off and just go to our chronological list. If none of the features that you've just seen in here allow you to see what you want to see, we also have a custom filter that will allow you to more finely grained specify what it is that you would like to see. And you can turn that on by clicking on the filter button. And in doing so, you can go ahead and you can look at the two fields that have been specified in the additional fields that you wanted to see during the configuration. So in this case, employee name and department. And so if I only want to see what's happening for Peter Morrow, I can type in Morrow, and under the search type I either have equals, which means it's going to be precisely that piece of information, or contains, and then it's going to do sort of a like search where Morrow could have Peter after it or Peter in front of it. As long as Morrow shows up, I'm expecting that I'm going to see this person. So if I go ahead and say OK, you'll see that my filter has turned on. I now only see employees that are marked under Peter Morrow, and I also now have a button that indicates that the filter is active. Not only is it depressed, but it's also turned red. If I want to go ahead and turn that filter off and return myself back to the standard all users display, I can simply press on that button. It will become unfiltered, and out comes the input. The output just as it was prior. The next group here has to do with being able to very quickly generate a report that you can print. And there are two buttons here. The first one allows you to create a printer report of the screen that you're currently looking at, whatever that happens to be, whether it's in, out, specials, filters, and so forth. What you see on the screen, if we go ahead and we start the report wizard, we'll move the report wizard into the viewable area here. You can select the printer that you want to use, and the tutorial video is created. The tutorial report output is created, and so we can actually see that this is the page that would be printed, and we can select that we wish to print it. So you can very, very quickly create a print of the current screen. This other button, which we're actually going to deal with in a separate tutorial, is for the archive reporter. And the archive reporter is exactly what it sounds like. Once an event has been closed and archived, the data is still absolutely accessible and retrievable, and the archive reporter allows you to get at that. As we said, we will have a separate tutorial on archive reporting. If you're interested in looking at reports from prior events, I suggest you take a look at that tutorial. The next 5 buttons have to do with positioning where you would like the badge to show up. And you can specify that you want to show it top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, or middle of the screen. And again, right at the moment, it's top left, and so if we use the button that allows us to reveal the badge and always keep it on top, you'll see that the badge is currently at the top left. We've just kept it underneath our screen because we wanted to keep the screen for the purposes of this video. The next button here is the button that goes along with the configuration side of things and has to do with creating badges on the fly. Again, if you're in a situation where you would like to be able to create a new card for somebody who does not have a badge inside the database and you don't want to have to leave an event, you want to use this button. So if we go ahead and we click this, you'll see that there is a badge creation wizard that takes you very quickly through this process. So if we go ahead and say next, we get the new record screen, which you can see here. You would enter in the information very quickly for the person. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and John Doe, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we can go ahead and say OK. The next thing it's going to ask us about is how do we want to capture the information, the picture. We can either select to not capture the picture or use one of the inputs that's available to us through the badge creation side of things. If you're not familiar with these options, then I suggest that you go back and look at some of the operations tutorials for Badge Builder, which is the core of the TeamTracer system when it comes to the badge creation side of things. If you want to get a record created very quickly and you don't want to create a badge, create a photo on the badge, you can just go ahead and say no photo capture, which will get you right through to the end. As far as doing a print badge on finish, if you need to create the badge for somebody right away, you can obviously do that. If it's just that you're interested in getting their data in so that you can scan them in or swipe them in or type in their ID number, as the case may be, then you may or may not want to print the badge on finish. Generally speaking, if you have a printer available, it was probably a good idea to print the badge. So if we go ahead and say finish, and we've selected that we want to print, then we actually get the printing dialog that comes from the Badge Builder side of the TeamTracer interface. And again, there is information, extensive information in the tutorials for operation for Badge Builder, and suggest that you look at that if you have questions about creating the badge. In this case, we're not going to actually finish printing the badge. We're just going to go ahead and say close so that that system is closed down, and we're returned here to the screen. However, we've just created a person with a badge number that was 12345, so if we enter in 12345, we should find that we now have an entry for 12345. Now, this gives us a good instance of going back very briefly and looking at reassignments. But when I actually scanned this person in, I accidentally had checked the oxygen as the selection. Clearly not what I really wanted. I really wanted an in against a particular location. So just to reinforce, I can go back to in. I can select that perhaps that they were supposed to be on side D Division 2, and I can go ahead and say reassign for that individual. And now he's been reassigned to the real area where I really meant for him to be. So no need to swipe him out and swipe him back in again. He may have already walked away, etc., or I've forgotten the ID number, what have you. It allows you to reassign without needing to see anything further. And I can remove the in again, and now I can see that very quickly the person was reassigned to the right location. If you have questions or you need information about the software itself, these two buttons are available right here. And if you need to leave the software for any reason, leave the action capture screen for any reason to return to the Badge Builder side of the TeamTracer interface or to close the program down, this will allow you to exit it without closing the event. And so if you need to return to the event today or tomorrow or what have you, and you don't want the event to be closed and archived, this is the button that you would want to use. And if we go ahead and we exit out of here now, you'll see that we're immediately returned back to the TeamTracer screen, which is the Badge Builder portion of the screen itself. And that concludes the TeamTracer operations tutorial.